So, the first topic of the Grand U Davinator 1, 2, and 2 Debate League is the statement, adding new summoning mechanics to the game is healthy for the game. Basically meaning that whenever we get a new anime coming around, it's pretty much just a commercial for a new summoning mechanic, which is something like links or pendulums or synchros or Xyz or anything like that. And anytime they add something completely new and they have to pretty much add an entirely new rule set in order to accommodate said mechanic, I believe that this is healthy for the game because it maintains interest as well as just keeping the players happy, because it not only does it get in new players, but it also keeps the old players from getting way too bored with the game.
Is that your time?
That is my opening statement.
Okay.
All right. My opening statement, because I am against this, apparently. So the new summoning mechanics, I believe, are not healthy for the game because they're not very beginner player friendly, and they introduce new levels of power creep. The examples I bring is if you show a new player the game with all these different colored cards, it can very easily overwhelm them. So there's going to be a point where all the variety in summoning will actually have the reverse effect, where instead of bringing new players in, they're alienating them, and even dedicated members of the already established player base might also leave because of it. So that's my opening statement for that.
All right, Dave, you have 1 minute to
rebuttal. All right. Well, that was quite succinct of Marion.
I wrote it down and forgot about it immediately after.
I wrote it down. All right. Okay, so Marion brings up the point that having too many summoning mechanics in this game might actually alienate new players. Now, this is very subjective of Marion. However, I do believe that the game in and of itself, most of the time, does not change that drastically. You can still find a deck that all it does is normal summon your opponent to death, like original old school Yu-Gi-Oh! You don't have to play links, you don't have to play synchros. It's just the more of these you tack onto your deck, the more viable your deck becomes at a competitive level, but there is nothing stopping you from playing something cheesy and easy to learn.
Well done. You have 6 seconds left.
Ram-a-lam-a ding-dong.
All right, we're done.
All right, I guess I'll go. Dave brings up the very...
Before Marion blows me out of the water, how many times do you go back and forth before you call it?
I assume it's 2 each, right? Like I get opening, he gets opening, rebuttal, and then the audience decides, right?
Yeah.
Or the moderator, I assume.
That's what I was. Yeah, two rebuttals.
That would make...
So three.
Okay.
3 talks, including the opening.
Oh shit! I barely. All right. I'll see what I can do. All right. So Dave brings up the very lovely and succinct point that you can play a bad deck and you can still play the bad deck. My counter argument is bringing new summoning mechanics into the game actually introduces a lot of power creep, where you can play those decks and you'll probably do bad with them, but the being bad with them might actually promote you to leave the game, because no one likes getting their ass kicked for 5 hours. And if you're actively not playing the new summoning mechanic that Konami is very actively pushing towards you, you are very heavily nerfing yourself and putting yourself at an even higher disadvantage, not only because you're playing a bad deck against an old deck versus new decks, but you're also playing a bad deck against decks that are very actively willing to use a new mechanic to its fullest. Because remember, when a new mechanic comes out, it's almost always going to be good to an extent than the previous mechanic once it hits its stride. A good example is start... Oh, okay. That's all I got. I don't have a round 3 in me, but I can say
Is this my closing statement?
This is your closing statement.
All right.
Go.
Tell me. Now, you might think that unless you play Link Spam Uber Bomber Dragon Samsara Lotus Turbo, you will not win your locals or regional level tournament. However, you can find in the grand uh, uh, ether of cards, there are almost 10,000 of them, a deck that is a competent anti-meta strategy that may or may not actually be competitive. It doesn't necessarily mean there is, but it also doesn't necessarily mean there is not. I would like to cite as True Draco, despite the fact I can't stand that deck, it is inherently an old school style anti-meta stun deck, and it could still do very well at a regional level. It's just, and it's very old school. It doesn't even play an extra deck. It actually actively plays cards that doesn't allow it to. So, yes.
Then that's time.
Nice. I guess I'll start. Now, I know a lot of you youngins want to play your garbage decks. You don't want to play Links. You don't want to know what pendulums do. And you don't want to read card effects. And you might be inspired by Necros players, by True Draco players that are topping in the meta. But do understand that they are very far in between. The distance appears between a meta deck that didn't rely on the new summon mechanic from Necros to True Draco was what? Like a year or so? So that's a solid 1 year of you getting your ass kicked by people who know how to play the game. So what I'm saying is the more summoning mechanics that they introduce into the game is going to be a lot more times you're going to have to learn that mechanic, and eventually you will hit your point, and you just don't want to play anymore. La-di-da-di-da.
You got 10 seconds.
Ryan is a goblin.
Ryan's a goblin! He's a goblin!
Alright, I'm calling it.
I need to tell the people!
Alright, so.
I always fumble towards the end. I felt I started strong, but it just went down.
So, to be honest with you, that was actually not bad. Like, I think...
Yeah.
So let's open it up to the chat. Anybody watching? All three of you.
Anybody out of the
All
6
three of you.
What do you guys think? Do you think that that it is a good thing that new mechanics and new rule sets should be added to the game, or do you think that that's literally just a cash grab, or that Konami should try to support what they've already done? And yeah,
you should do a poll on these when you parse them out. Can you still do polls?
That'd be really good.
Yep. So in the corner way up there should be a poll when this is up.
Not now.
Not now. You can't click it, but there will be.
There will be if you're watching this in the future.
The future.
Morning.
Sean Darko thinks it's a double-edged sword.
Okay.
I can see that because if they don't do more mechanics, then the game stales out. And
hey Dave, you think once we're done with the topic, should we reveal our actual how we feel about it, like our stances instead of?
I don't know. Does that kind of ruin the mystique?
I don't know.
System 7 says the point that some new mechanics are good on release is just wrong. So you want the new one to not be good right away and have people not buy cards?
Well, I think that's kind of what happened with Pendulums, because Pendulums at the start were really bad, but then once Clee came around, it's
Links were kind of too. They kind of do like 1 or 2 sets slow build up.
It's a little bit of a slow burn, but it's not like it takes them a year to get their stride. Like, it's like 3 sets. But...
Yeah, Yugi Moto says, my feelings is that perhaps they should slow it down for an era, then go back.
Well, they don't really slow things down for an era. They usually are. It's like a format-to-format thing.
Well, no, he's thinking you should do that.
Yeah, they should.
That's a guy thinks that innovation is good, but needs to be more balanced. But balanced archetypes don't sell product.
They don't win.
As long as my mommy's credit card has money, I'll buy cards with new summoning mechanics, says PK Master.
All right.
I mean, that's very legit.
Autobot Starscream says they need to both add new mechanics and support mechanics once released.
I'm always down for continuous support for older decks. They've kind of always done that.
I think, regardless of your opinion on the topic, as long as there is a steady stream of legacy support, I'm not sure most people would care one way or the other what the new stuff is.
That's true.
I think legacy support is kind of the olive branch that I think sometimes Konami and the player base
And I guess
lack.
in that sense, the link mechanic made old cards good.
It made a lot of old cards good, actually.
Like
Yeah.
Junk
Scapegoat.
Forward,
Grinder Golem.
Right.
Yeah,
So
Scapegoat.
just the fact that not only are you doing legacy support for archetypes, but you're also bringing in old cards and making the older player base look through their commons tins and actually say, "Hey, I've got this really cool card that is being used a lot now."
Yeah, like I think Junk Forward's a great example. That card doesn't really do very much outside of a link format, but
Right.
it's very good at what it does, just being a body.
Right.
So like,
That's all you need sometimes, you know.
Yeah, and links were
body.
never meant to slow the game down. We just thought that they were going to be a gatekeeper to what we already knew, as opposed to
yeah, that's because
Their
all
own
the
thing.
links that we had at the beginning were all bad. So we're like,
That's
oh,
true.
You mean hot dumpster fire?
Yeah, they really were.
That turned out pretty well. I think that was pretty good.
yeah.
Could have been worse.
Max the Me says the problem that I see is that as new summoning mechanics come out, the room for new creative ones becomes limited. So jumping off of that comment, what do you think could possibly be done in the future?
next.
What's the next summoning mechanic?
The elusive red card.
Yes,
The elusive red cards. Oof.
It's the only color we don't have.
it's true. Or we
Except-
could do another
except
blue one.
Promos-
I
except
think what they're gonna
Promo
do
Slifer.
is they're gonna go green. Not like spell green, but actual green. You know what I'm saying? I think that'd be possible.
Like
Just have,
Goblin Green.
The cop, Brian will love these. But like, there's monsters that are spells, but you activate them. Like it's kind of like pendulums, I guess.
You just
Like,
want more pendulums. You
I want more pendulums.
you just outed yourself as a pendulum player. You know what? Fuck it. I just want more pendulums.
Oh, it sounded so good in my head.
Give
It's
me
like,
a
What I
pendulum
guess-
version of Avion. Just
So
do it.
instead of
Fucking do it.
It'll be
instead
so
of
great.
so instead of a spell monster, you could have a trap monster.
Oh, I'd love more traps in this game. If you know
You mean
what I'm
like
saying.
like the tikis?
Yes. No, like
Oh.
You
pendulum
mean
style.
you mean a pendulum monster that you can just summon. You don't have to
No,
play it
he's
as a
talk-
trap first and then flip it as a trap and it summons
it's
as
a
monster.
half trap, half monster. So it looks like a pendulum, but maybe
It looks like a pendulum.
maybe the
What
pendulum
is-
summon is from the grave rather than from the extra deck.
I mean, could you imagine if they just gave you trap pendulums and the ruling is you can set a trap pendulum in your pendulum zone and flip it as a trap and it
Oh,
acts
boy.
as a scale?
Oh, thank God, I would love that.
Screw
You anti-spell
your
favorites.
anti-spell
I don't know. I guess
favorites.
as far as variations on a theme, you could have a pendulum trap style as opposed to don't call it pendulum, but call it something else.
And there's always the ever elusive pendulum uneven scales. That's something
Yeah.
we talked about.
The
So many.
the lopsided pendulum scale because they clearly set up the board and the cards to have two different pendulum scales, and yet they never did it. I don't know if it was even something they considered or not, but they have all they don't even have to do anything weird. The trappening.
I mean, yeah, I guess you could expand the pendulums to all sorts of different of the other like link pendulum, ritual pendulum, but like what's the new mechanic? What's the one
Dimension
after-
summoning, that
I
stupid
guess.
thing in the movie.
It was I mean it is a thing. It's got precedent.
If it counts as a normal summon, not a spell, I guess it would slow the game down just a little bit. You know?
I mean, it would make beaters more viable. Like, there's tons of monsters like Mechanical Hound or whatever it's called. It's got a decent effect, but it doesn't have very good search power to get to it, and you have to pretty much tribute for it. Like, there's not a great way of playing it outside of like
Pendulums.
pendulums.
Right.
So dimension summoning would certainly make cards like that, like Jinzo or something, a lot more viable because you could just play them as basically they all just become Denko Sekkas at that point. But you're tying life points to them instead. That could be neat. You'd be basically killing the tribute summon mechanic, but I guess
I thought a good way to like start that out is use it only with normal monsters. It'll be an indirect boost to Blue Eyes and Dark Magician because they have such a hard time summoning the damn thing. Because if you just do effect monsters, there is the potential it could be broke a little bit.
But
Some
it was
monsters,
just normal monsters. You could dimension summon normal monsters. That's cute. I like that idea.
yeah, because like there's a lot of really good monsters that aren't played because they're such a high level. Like imagine Vanity's Ruler, where only your opponent can't special summon. Just sack that,
Yeah, that'd be kind of dumb if you could just slap it out on the ground. But like giving Dark Magician ability just to get a Dark Magician on board turn one without
what you're
having
saying is with no monsters left in my field, I summon Dark Magician and attack the game.
It sounds slightly less cheesy.
Any final thoughts on what type of do you think they would add? Okay, so in addition to like the summoning mechanic of dimension summoning, do you think they would do another extra deck style summoning? Is there anywhere else to go?
There's a reason it's called the extra deck because there's so many extra summoning mechanics coming out.
I mean, like, I honestly think they're going to stick to that because making a fancy main deck summoning mechanic, we only have 1.5, right? Like, we have rituals and pendulums sometimes. So sometimes. So you run into this problem where it's like, how good a ritual monster needs to be before it becomes viable. It needs to be Necroz level.
Yes.
Like, it needs to be broke. The monsters need to search the spells. Like, they need to have hand trap abilities. Like, because rituals get tons of empty advantage and then blow it all in one turn. So that mechanic is inherently just kind of doesn't work. So it'd be very hard to make a balanced new mechanic that's a main deck mechanic. Being in the extra deck solves a lot of like just logistical problems with
dead drawing it and stuff,
and just like integrating a new mechanic into the game. It's like, oh well, it's in your extra deck. Also, give us 20 cards in our extra deck.